No intro today.
There should be. Well, hello, everybody. This is not a professional outfit. So we had... Thank you for your patience.
Are you professional or not?
So we had some technical difficulty, which I'd love to blame on the cat, but it's me sorting out the after cat effect. So 500,000 Mexican Catholics were once being slaughtered by a government that outlawed the Mass in the early part of the 20th century. And the bishops told them to pray in dialogue. And some of them did, and others picked up rifles and shouted, "Viva Cristo Rey," and won. I'm Bishop Meikle, and this is Escaping Religion. Today with my friend Felix, we're going to talk about some of the events that have been going on the last couple of weeks. Certainly the news has kept us hopping. There's a position circling in Catholic and Christian spaces right now that are sincere and I would say completely wrong, though. And that is that holds that warfare is never the answer. That peace only comes from dialogue and prayer. And people at the highest levels of Christianity, that's the quote of the week. You know, war never solves anything, and only from dialogue and prayer. And that any resort to arms represents a failure of faith. Now, it sounds holy, but it's not actually what the church has taught over the years. As Christians face increasing legal, cultural, and in some parts of the world, physical persecution, like our friends in Nigeria, the answer they are being given is therapeutic. It's a make religion answer. Feel the right thing, say the right words, and perhaps God will intervene. The church's actual teaching is more demanding and more honest than that. I've spent years with the pre-1960 moral tradition, the texts of Aquinas, Augustine, Leo XIII, history of the Cristeros, Book of Maccabees, the Vendeans, who are all told their cause was lost. And, you know, it's a very interesting thing to read these things for yourselves. So by the end of this little live stream, and we'll get into it, of course, we'll be welcoming your comments. And I expect it's going to be a little spicy because there are a couple legitimate pushbacks to some of the stuff I'm going to say, and we'll unpack that during the discussion portion. But by the end of this, you'll hopefully have the classical Catholic framework for just war, what it permits, what it forbids, and why the liberation of a truly oppressed people is not merely allowed by the faith, but under the right conditions is a holy act. So you have heard it perhaps many times that someone raises the question of Christian resistance to tyranny, and the response comes back almost immediately. We must pray, we must dialogue, and violence only begets more violence. But it's not as simple as that. It has the texture of wisdom, those words, and it produces some emotional sensation of moral seriousness, but it leaves the oppressed exactly where they were, under the boot of their oppressor. The people who say that this, the people that, I guess, push a Christian pacifism aren't wicked, of course. They intend good. They're often drawing on real Christian impulses, the Sermon on the Mount, the witness of the martyrs that went peacefully, the example of our Lord himself going to the cross without resistance. These are genuine. But this is where the argument breaks. They account for one strand of Christian witness and simply pretend that the rest of Christian history doesn't exist. They cannot account for the Maccabees, for example, which we read about in the Old Testament, who took up arms to preserve the worship of God and were celebrated for it. They cannot account for Judith, who personally executed a tyrant, was praised as a deliverance from God. And in fact, in Catholic tradition, we use Judith in typology for our Blessed Mother. They cannot account for the fact that in Ecclesiastes 3:8, it says plainly that there is a time for war and a time for peace, not a time for dialogue until things improve, a time of war. In 1215, Pope Innocent III convened the Fourth Lateran Council. The church was not embarrassed by the existence of the warrior class. It was deeply invested in the proper ordering of force, which means it took force seriously as a moral reality, not as a moral failure to be abolished by better feelings. That was the symptom, but the disease runs deeper, because the problem is not simply that some Christians are pacifists. The problem is that sentimental pacifism has been smuggled into Catholic teaching as though it were the ancient position, when in fact it is a modern innovation that the Church Fathers would not recognize. The ancient church possessed a precise, philosophically rigorous account of when force is morally licit. That account has been replaced in such contemporary Christian discourse or on Catholic Twitter by an emotional preference dressed as theology. The result is not peace. The result is the moral abandonment of the oppressed, performed with a clean conscience. St. Thomas Aquinas in the Summa Theologia, in the second part, question 40, laid out conditions with surgical precision. For war to be just, there must be a legitimate authority declaring it, a just cause. The fault must lie with those attacked, and a rightful intention, the advancement of good and the avoidance of evil. Aquinas did not consider just war a concession to human weakness. He considered it an expression of caritas, of love, rightly ordered. And Augustine, 4 centuries before Aquinas, wrote in The City of God that the purpose of just warfare is not the love of violence, but the love of peace, and that to refuse to defend the innocent when one could do so is not holiness, but negligence. His word, negligentia. When we strip just war doctrine from the conversation and replace it with sentimental pacifism, we do not produce peace. We produce a theology remarkably convenient for oppressors. Just ask the little villages of England, because it commands the oppressed to keep dialoguing with the oppressor, and the oppressor keeps on oppressing. That is not a coincidence. That is the function it serves. Consider the Cristeros War. From 1926 to 1929, the Mexican government had made the public practice of Catholicism illegal. Priests were executed. Churches were seized. The initial response of the Mexican episcopate was exactly what the sentimentalists prescribed: suspension of public worship, appeals to the government, prayer, and patience. It achieved nothing. The Cristeros, ordinary farmers, ranchers, and Catholic faithful, took up arms. The war they waged was imperfect, as all human things are, but the outcome was the restoration of Catholic worship in Mexico. Blessed Miguel Pro died with his arms outstretched, crying, Viva Cristo Rey. The Church has beatified these men, not simply as martyrs who endured suffering, as witnesses who acted. But that's only part of the picture, because the Bible itself does not wait for modern history to make this argument. We find in the first book of Maccabees one of the most direct accounts of the divinely endorsed armed resistance in all of Scripture. Matthias and his sons, including Judas Maccabeus, took up arms against Antiochus Epiphanes, who had desecrated the temple, outlawed the Torah, and was slaughtering those who refused apostasy. The text does not present their warfare as a tragic necessity. It presents it as fidelity to God. Judas Maccabeus fought with cheerfulness the battle of Israel. You find that in 1 Maccabees 3. These men reconsecrated the temple. They preserved the lineage through which the Messiah would come. And then there is the argument from the 20th century that silences all others by that little Charlie Chaplin-looking gentleman of World War II. He was not stopped by dialogue. He was stopped by men with weapons who were willing to take up arms against genuine, documented, industrial-scale evil. To hold the pacifist position consistently, one must be prepared to say that the Allied armies should have laid down their arms and prayed harder. Almost no one, when pressed, is actually willing to say that, which means the question is never whether force is listed. It is when and under what conditions. And this is where it gets important for you specifically, because the just war doctrine is not merely a permission. It carries a weight on the other side as well. Here's what the sentimentalists miss, and what distinguishes classic Catholic teaching from mere baptized aggression. Aquinas' conditions are not a green light. They are a gate. The just war tradition exists not to make warfare easy, but to make it answerable. You must have legitimate authority. You must have just cause. You must have right intention, meaning the restoration of peace and justice, not conquest, not revenge, not enrichment. You must have proportionality, and you must have a reasonable hope of success, because to spend lives on a hopeless cause is not heroism, it is waste. The tradition is demanding precisely because it takes force seriously as a moral act, and it places the heaviest burden not on the warrior fighting to liberate the innocent, but on the powerful who would abuse that authority. To fight for the liberation of a truly oppressed people under legitimate authority with right intention and proportionate means. This, the Church has always considered not merely permissible, but worthy of the highest moral dignity. To use force against the weak, the innocent, and the civilian, this tradition is always named as a grave sin. And, I wonder, for example, the bombing of Dresden is often brought up. And also debate about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The doctrine does not baptize every war, but it does name the liberation of the oppressed under the right conditions as holy work. And it does not pretend that dialogue alone will stop a man who has already decided to kill you. The sentimental pacifism I have described today is a mixed religion answer to a real question. It produces the feeling of moral seriousness without the weight of actual moral reasoning. It elevates one strand of Christian witness, the witness of patient endurance, and it pretends it exhausts the tradition, when in fact, the tradition contains both the martyr and the warrior, both the cross and Maccabees, both the counsel to turn the other cheek in personal insult and the duty to defend the innocent from massacre. It is comfortable for those who are not oppressed. It is a betrayal of those who are. The first commandment anchor, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with thy whole heart and with thy whole soul and with thy whole mind, that we find in Matthew 22:37. To love God with the whole heart is to love what God loves, which includes the innocent, the weak, the persecuted. A faith that names love of God as its first obligation and then refuses on sentimental grounds to defend those God loves is not a holier faith, it is a hollower one. The first commandment is not a call to feel loving, it is a call to be loving, with all the cost and difficulty that entails. This week, why don't you read the first book of Maccabees? It's not long. Read it not as ancient history, but as a question. What would fidelity to God actually have looked like here? And then ask yourself whether the answer the sentimentalists give is the answer Scripture gives. Let the text speak for itself before you decide. This is not a comfortable conclusion. The just war tradition places genuine moral weight on those who would take up arms, does not release them from the obligation of proportionality, right intention, and legitimate authority. The tradition does not produce easy answers, it produces honest ones. And honest answers are often harder to live with than comfortable feelings. They're also worth more. You came in today being told that Christianity requires the oppressed to keep dialoguing. You leave today with the name for the error: sentimentalism dressed as doctrine. And with the classical Catholic framework, just war, Aquinas, Augustine, the Maccabees, and the Cristeros, who shouted Viva Cristo Rey, while the bullets flew. That framework is harder than the sentimental alternative. There's also the faith. So, Felix, Iran got hit, its navy sunk, its leaders killed. Just war or no?
I think I'm leaning towards no, if I'm going to be honest with you. Now, I will say this. Everything you said is correct. I'm with you. And again, this is someone I had to get turned around, but I am 100% turned around on things like the Crusades, the Inquisition, the conquistadors, everything that I was taught to hate. I am now real, it's been a process, but I've slowly realized, these were actually heroes and good things that happened that were being painted poorly. I just don't think that what we're seeing in Iran falls into this category. I just, to put it quite simply, we just really did Israel's bidding. We just did Israel's bidding. You know what I mean?
You're not alone in saying that. And actually, we share, I guess, the same potential objection in the sense that I also do not want to see us working for any other state, including Israel. And I'm just fixing something with my setup here.
And I'll tell you what, while you were talking, I was looking this up. So Iran, this was what's even funnier, is that we're literally taking out a government that we installed in the 50s.
Yeah, actually, you're right. The funny thing about that, well, it's I think we can all agree that it's best that the various Western powers, or all the powers, leave these little countries alone as much as possible. And if you're going to coerce them, which of course happens with one country to another, if you're going to coerce them, then do so through nonviolent means, through trade wars or this kind of thing. Again, it's part of the problem is, if we're going to use Iran as a specific example, we don't have all the information. So it is perfectly fine to disagree that we should have went into Iran in this particular case. Now, the argument, from what we both know, is, first of all, and I'm biased, okay? So first of all, I agree with Felix. Actually, when, what was it, a year ago, when the U.S. went after a nuke site last year? And that's right. I was horrified. Because I thought, this is going to open up an unnecessary can of whoop. And the reason why, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to go from my memory here, but from what I understand, basically Israel attacked and the U.S. just sort of went right in right after. And
They
so
had
what it
to,
looked like
yeah.
is that they put us in a difficult spot, and then
Yeah.
we were sort of forced in. And I was very upset at that, or I shouldn't say very upset. I was irritated at it.
Sure.
And because again, I don't think that our allies, or whether they be real or pretend, should be getting us into wars that no one voted for. Right?
Yeah. No, 100%.
So that's the argument there. The other, but I'm going to share my bias. Well, some insight. So I know somebody that I met. Somebody was a sort of a friend of a friend, and got to know her fairly well. And she escaped Iran when the Shah fell. Okay, and that the mullahs were installed there. And so the thing is that she had been praying for years that the U.S. In fact, she was very angry that George Bush didn't go in and liberate Iran. So you've got probably at least half that country that actually wanted this to happen. So that when you know that's kind of puts a different spin on things. But I think you and I are in 100% agreement that we shouldn't be doing this for Israel's interests alone. One of the things that horrified me, and maybe some of our viewers, I really strongly disagree with Governor Huckabee and Senator Cruz with both their theological position and their political position on the state of Israel. I am not an enemy of Israel, but I am also not owned by them. I'm not. I don't appreciate the various groups that are pro-Israel trying to censor Christian voices. So I prefer that we just agree to disagree and we remain friendly. I don't share with some of my trad brethren a complete hatred for them.
Right.
But I certainly am not. I'm not going to. I think they should just be treated like any other ally. And there's one of the things that I have a personal issue with is that the lobby groups are very involved in a way that, to my knowledge, and you guys can fact check me if I'm wrong, because some of you are more well read on this than I. But my understanding is no other country has the same kind of influence lobby-wise as this nation. So that's an issue. But back to Iran. So I just wanted to mention some stuff, if I can get it into my notes here. See, I was messing with the camera. The cat decided to adjust the camera. I'm always blaming the cat, but it was. And so I just have a pile of paper I had to pull out of the printer. So from my notes earlier and today. So if you peruse Catholic Twitter, you got some very respectful voices who agree with Felix here that we shouldn't have gone in there. All right. So I just wanted to share that. So one of the guys I look forward to, or look up to in many respects, is Dr. Edward Fieser. And, he's a prominent Catholic philosopher, and he explicitly calls this a preventative war. So basically, he says it's unjust under just war criteria because there's no proper authority, in his view, that Congress was skipped. There's no clear plan for a better outcome, and loose rationale could justify almost any aggression. So I think that's a serious point. Then you have Leo XIV. So he warns of a spiral of violence. He described it as the potential of an irreparable abyss and a tragedy of enormous proportion. He said that stability and peace are not built through mutual threats, nor with weapons that sow destruction, pain, and death, but only through a dialogue that is reasonable, authentic, and responsible. He urged halting violence before it's too late and framed peace as a moral duty rooted in justice and God's will, not dominion via arms. And that is a view shared by all the liberal Catholics on Twitter. Now, part of the problem here is that, okay, so even if you're liberal, like I like to try to put on the mind of my dialogue opponent here, Felix. So, okay, imagine I'm really liberal for a moment. Do you think as a liberal that we could trust dialogue with Iran?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, that is certainly not Iran today. Yeah.
So that's my point, is that both liberals and conservatives actually agree on this. No one's going to listen to the mullahs.
Yeah, no.
right?
No,
So,
no,
and the
that's
other
right.
thing is, do you think, liberal or conservative, that we agree that Iran could have nuke weapons? That they would, if they don't have them already, that they were
No.
developing? You
I
don't think they
think
have them?
maybe developing, but and again, like I don't know, I know you, I don't know if you are. I think you may be, but I'm a fan of Mark Dice. Today's video, he actually showed this little this. This is something I've been familiar with, by the way. This isn't the first
Yeah,
time
yeah.
I've seen this, but he
Yep.
just played this nice little montage of Bibi. Just every couple of years is Iran's right around the corner from developing nuclear weapons, and it's just this big boogeyman thing. Again, this is weapons of mass destruction all over again. So I mean, like, if they were developing a nuclear program, that's not the same as developing a nuclear weapon. That's one. I mean, I think maybe they were trying to develop their own nukes. I'm even on the fence of like how about all of that in general, but
Well, again, we don't know,
I don't
right?
think it was a threat. Yeah, we don't know. I mean, if you're asking me to guess, I'm guessing this was all a big exaggeration. Again, like we're being played. We were just being played.
Now, that said, if they were innocent, like they followed through on a lot of their other promises, right? They attacked shipping. They attacked friendly Muslim countries. Actually, I was sort of some of the YouTubers I watch, and maybe you do too. They live in Dubai, and those high rises got hit by missiles. So I don't know if anybody was hurt, but yeah, there's a lot of people that move to Dubai from, especially if you live in the UK. There's a lot of people that say we don't want the taxes, and it's weird. It's weird. They go to a Muslim country to escape the Islamicization of their own country, but you know what?
Here's my
Dubai's a lot more friendly to a non-Muslim than some cities in Britain are.
Right. But here's my biggest concern. We're not going to Iran to bring Jesus. We're going to put more McDonald's in the area. You know what I mean? We're not going there to bring Jesus.
Maybe
I'm being too cynical, you think? Or
no. I think you're being very wise looking at the past history. If we do the stupidity that we did in Iraq, Afghanistan, right? Afghanistan was even stupider because we left all that equipment and we didn't even,
left it. We gifted it. It's more like it. We Amazon Primed it to Afghanistan.
Basically, the Taliban were flying the helicopters around in the parade and
making memes. It was so demoralizing just watching this. I'm just like, oh, my Lord.
From the time there was the invention of artillery, you had this notion of what they called spiking the guns, right? So if your artillery position was going to be overrun, you self-destructed it. You'd think that the American forces would destroy anything they couldn't move, but they didn't, and that was just kind of weird. But again, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole. I do want to say that no, I mean, first of all, and I concede it, it's perfectly legitimate to say, hey, Meikle, we didn't have enough information to determine this is a just war, therefore there should have been restraint. I think one of the things that I find frustrating when you talk about stuff like this, we really don't know what's going on. There's so much that is not going to be known. Like, I bet you we're not going to know what happened in 9/11 until like I'm 92, if that, right? And so the same thing, what really was going on here is probably, like, I know they made threats to use sleeper cells, to attack shipping, to, they had a lot of, and I think what happened, and you guys are free to disagree with me because it's just totally my opinion. But I think what happened was when that raid went so well last year and those sleeper cells didn't get activated, there was an understanding that this might be more of a paper tiger than they thought.
Yeah.
And they basically, they could, but it is true, they fund a lot of bad guys, right? So would you concede that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would actually. Yeah, absolutely. And again, like, I think there's more evidence supporting that. Again, we've been lulled in and just dragged into this. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say Israel so much today, but we got there's more evidence supporting that than to just say that we just don't know the facts. I think that overall that's 100%.
Well, we don't know all the facts. So I would say in the defense that I think that it was justified, I would say that, first of all, there's the oppressed people at probably between 30 and 40% of that country wanted liberation. So there's that.
That
I'd say
counts.
that it does. And then the second thing is, so the recent I get my notes here. So the recent IAEA, the inspection agency for the nuke world, confirms, and it did beforehand, that Iran has enough enriched uranium for multiple weapons, and it denied inspections, and that basically
that's yellow cake. Remember yellow cake when that was when we were talking about yellow cake during and the this is the Hegelian dialectic, right? Where it's like problem solution, right? That is exactly around the situation. It's like, yeah, of course they wanted to be saved. They wanted to be saved by the situation that we put them in. So it's like to go, they didn't ask America for help per se. I'm sure they're happy, but it's like, we did this to them. Why would they come to us to bail them out of it?
Do you think that some of those that were killed at breakfast, right? They took out the entire leadership, right?
Yeah, that was impressive.
Do you think that some of those at breakfast actually wanted the attack to happen?
Yes.
Why?
How do you say, to escalate, or at least to justify escalation?
So here's something. Do you know anything about? And again, I'm not an expert on this, guys. Like,
Likewise.
I know more than the average bear on some of this stuff, but I'm far from an expert on Islamic eschatology. But basically, my understanding, and remember that guy, he was the president of Iran, and he came out, Felix, and he said, Aminejad. I don't remember what happened to him. I think he upset the theocracy, and he sort of disappeared from public view. But do you remember he was the president, and he would get up and make these crazy speeches at the UN? And one of the ones that he did, he basically said that they were hoping that their equivalent of a Messiah would manifest when they were attacked. So I'm wondering, and I mean, I'm interested if you guys have any comments you want to share here, but I'm wondering whether that we could be dealing with some crazy, like basically a prophecy gone wrong and it didn't work out for them. And so it's kind of interesting. There's so many layers to this onion.
Yeah. This goes deep.
Can you imagine if the military people got a briefing that they were planning some apocalyptic crazy thing for their religion, and if it might have put the finger on the scale for the decision, and of course there wouldn't be a public announcement for it. So a lot of people don't realize Islam is like Christianity in this respect. There's more than one denomination. There's more than one group. And so I think there's something like, again, someone can fact check me. I think there's like 20 of them or so, but there's like two major ones, the Shia and the Sunni, and they don't like one another. And so the thing is, and they have different apocalyptics. They have a different understanding of how the world's going to end. So again, I'm not an expert in that subject matter. I'm just saying, I recall the president of Iran back, 10, 15 years ago, getting up at the UN and saying that basically, bring it, because our prophet's this other Messiah is gonna come by and he's gonna kick your butt. So I wonder if some of this stuff wasn't intentionally provocative, because we don't know the full details, but my understanding was they were offered a peaceful deal.
Sure. And, you know what? Just to push back a little bit on this, because we may want to change this title to "But Israel," because it's going to be because "But Israel" has the exact same thing going on with them. There were, the whole red heifer thing sounds crazy, sounds outlandish. It's 100% true, but it's not just them. It is these Maccabees characters, like these Zionist Protestants.
It's mostly the Maccabee thing, because I don't know how many Jewish friends you have. I don't know, but my understanding is very few go down that hole, right? First of all, culturally, anthropologically, and by the way, this is not as any insult. We can say the same about Catholics. In fact, Catholics are very similar to the Jewish people in this respect, that there's a lot of people that will self-identify as Catholic that really aren't into the theology of Catholicism. So they don't actually believe anything the church teaches. But if you ask them, are you Catholic? Oh yeah, I'm Catholic. Do you believe in, but they're pro everything the church is against and vice versa, right? So
they're secularized in every respect.
To them, Catholicism is kind of a tribe that you're born into. And that's kind of what goes on with Judaism. So you have some that are very devout and again, there's different factions of Judaism, just like there is different factions of Catholicism, but some are more into the restoration of the temple and others. There are plenty of Jewish people that do not want that temple rebuilt for a variety of reasons. And in part, for some, it's as simple as they don't see a need to return to animal sacrifice, right? So there's a broad spectrum of opinion, just as there is across Christianity on this.
Isn't that weird? Especially if you don't believe Jesus is our Lord and Savior, which he is, by the way, if anyone is wondering in the chat. But why not bring back animal sacrifices if that's
because
the case?
Some believe that especially after 2,000 years, that it's evolved into a synagogue system. So we see that in Christianity too. You have Orthodox and traditional Catholics with this understanding of the mass of sacrifice, and then you have Protestants with a focus on the word and a communal meal, and then sort of the new Catholics have adopted that model as well. So it's very complicated. I guess my main issue is if you ask me how certain I am that the Iran intervention is of God, I'm not very certain at all. I'm gonna push
0%.
It, but well, no, I wouldn't say zero, because
you wouldn't say zero. Okay.
Well, no, because those people have been waiting for liberation since the 70s, right? They've been waiting for someone to liberate them from a theocracy that was not right. And so, there is a duty of care for powerful nations to help the oppressed, if they can. And so again, we can argue where that line is and all that kind of stuff. And as you say, see, part of the problem is that a lot of Western governments, their intel services allegedly operate on their own music sheet. So they're doing their own thing, almost independent of the elected governments. How much of that goes on, I don't know. Is it a case that it's just a mistake when they go against government policy, and then the elected government sort of has to dig them out, or to avoid embarrassment? Is it a case that that they're truly like a shadow government? I mean, there's all those conspiracy theories. We can't sort all that out. But what I can say is that there's legitimate reason to. Well, if you listen to Matt Walsh, he wants to liberate Canada, right? So,
there's an argument.
There is an argument.
I mean, I get
it. So I don't think it's a 0% chance. And again, it's hard to narrow down much more certainty without all the info. And I think that a lot of people have, over the last 10 years, have really woken up with regard to understanding how much Israel does, for either good or ill, influence U.S. actions. And there's a lot of growing resentment for that. And so now there's distrust. And they brought that on themselves. And with all due respect to Governor Huckabee and Senator Cruz, they're not helping Israel's case being like they are. They're certainly not with people like me. They have hurt Israel's case. And in fact, I really,
which might be a good thing, actually.
Especially
inadvertently doing something good.
Well, especially with this, again, I don't want to open up too many rabbit holes, but this Jeffrey Eggstein thing.
Oh yeah,
we're going to use the code word. If he is indeed, was a part of some sort of machinations there, what are we? If we can't trust our friends, then why are we spilling blood and treasure for them, right? Yeah. So there is that argument.
We can ask.
Yeah,
him.
apparently we get on Xbox, right?
Yeah. Let's get on WoW and chat him up.
Honestly,
ask him what the afterlife is like.
So I will give you. So we'll just go over the quick argument for the two models here. So
Sure.
the traditional just war model from Aquinas and Augustine is a legitimate authority, so declared by lawful sovereign power. And Dr. Fieser says that wasn't engaged because it wasn't permission of Congress. I think that's, it's fair to bring that up, but when was the last time Congress actually declared war?
Right.
Was it World
Yeah,
War
this
II?
is the
Right.
norm. This is not the exception.
Right. So,
And
I mean,
you know what, Father, if I could, to your point where you were saying, like like if we go, what was this movie? The How I Learned to Love the Bomb. You know which one I'm talking about? The guy riding a missile down in black and white, classic movie.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
I can't. Yeah.
The cowboy waving his.
Yeah. As the bombs going down. Like, all right, when they were having their meetings and discussing the war, like when this was going on for Iran, I guarantee you, out of those 10, like let's say you had 10 officers with the president and all that, I would bet $20 because I don't got that much money, but I would bet 20 that not one of those generals were like, listen, if we go in there, we can get some missionaries in there. We can get the word out to the people. We can probably increase the churches. We can protect the churchgoers that want to practice Christianity in the area. I would bet $20 that conversation was not had. That's what I'm saying. That's why this doesn't fall into this category. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you there. But then there's also the argument, again, we could open up 20 million rabbit holes, is that liberated from the mullahs, apparently, and again, I'm not an expert on this. Some of you guys watch more different types of Catholic YouTube than I do, but apparently a lot of Muslims have been receiving messages from our Blessed Mother and the like, and there's been piles of conversions.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, there is a small Christian minority in Iran that is, for the most part, left alone, is my understanding.
I put this up only because it's relevant. There were tons of other comments that we will get to, but he says whether
we're gonna
I'm sorry.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, now we have to deal with it, right? So
we bought it. Yeah, it's like, we're gonna get another Iraq situation. We're gonna be there for 20 years.
Well, in fairness, we'll have to see. I mean, I would say that it depends on, is there going to be boots on the ground, and hopefully there's not. If there is, it's going to be a nightmare.
It'll be drones in the air. That's what we're.
Well, drones are kind of different, but I mean that I really don't think there's an appetite for the American people to have another Afghanistan or Iraq.
It wasn't what are we going to gain for the first time? You know what I mean? Since Vietnam.
Well, unless you were a shareholder in Halliburton.
That's right. That's a fact. I mean, yeah. There's definitely good that can come out of this. And again, to Father Hagen's point, God will use this to His will, and it's what it is. You know what I mean?
And it doesn't look, in fairness, it doesn't look like the Mahdi or whatever the name of their Messiah figure is. He didn't manifest and kick our butts. Well, not yet anyway.
Not yet anyway. And if and we'll hope that doesn't happen. But it's like, but this was Iraq. We went in there. It was a week long on CNN of bombarding, and then boom, and then it was mission accomplished within like 30 days. And you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, we did all the right stuff. We took out all the people. We didn't have to chase Saddam for a year, or like this guy for a year, like we do. So however long it took with Saddam.
Yep.
But it's again, we just have this mess now. It looks like they have another government ready with the vice president already in lockstep.
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see how that plays up, and also what the people themselves do. So again, so legitimate authority, we need that it has to be declared by sovereign power. Just cause, the fault has to lie with those attacked, grave injury inflicted, or in an imminent threat of real injury. So again, we don't have all the information for that. That may or may not be the case. Right intention, advancement of good and avoidance of evil, not conquest or revenge. Again, we will only know with how that plays out. Proportionality means proportionate to the end sought. Again, we'll see. We'll see what happens if the people rise up and they liberate their country. Then it'll bear good fruit. If it ends up even worse, then it won't. Last resort, all peaceful alternatives exhausted. again, I really don't. I think we covered that. I don't think anybody believes dialogue was really going to happen. I really actually, Felix, I'll get your point. What do you think about Obama giving, flying the plane over with billions of dollars and giving them money there to shut them up the last time? I mean, should we just have bought them off?
I don't think we need to do anything. Just be frank with you. I think this was all just propaganda. And like they were, it was like the school, it was like the one kid who was always instigating fights between two other students. That's this is kind of where I feel like we've been at. If we would have left Iran alone, I think
you're right, especially after the attack last year. It looked like we defanged a lot of them, right? A lot of the main concern. So totally. No, that's a point.
And here's the other thing too. This is what was a lot of the pundits that aren't like what is it, TPUSA or APAC or any, a lot of the Republican pundits even were saying this was going to happen, and this was like libertarian Dave Smith called it on his show. He says what's going to probably happen is Trump is going to attack Iran, and when you predict it like 6 months in advance, a year in advance, and then it happens, we got to pay attention to what, because this is what they were saying, and they predicted why it would happen, and again, it was at the beck and call of Israel.
Well, now the Iranians I know would differ with you. So I'm just saying there's another point of view. Like, for example, there is, and you can see it on various YouTube, because right and left are playing opposite clips, right? So you've got some like up in Canada parading with Homoni's picture and they're mourning, and then you've got jubilation of people celebrating because they think their liberation is nigh, right? Yeah, so you get both. So I'll just cover this. So applying the model here, okay? So liberation. So to liberate a truly oppressed people under right conditions is a holy act. That's one of my assertions. Yeah. We would, I think, both agree it's too early to say whether that's going to happen. Power restraint. Those who hold power over the weak and innocent bear the heaviest moral burden. So again, how many innocents were killed in this attack?
Fair enough. I think that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
The innocent must never be the instrument or casualty of power. So I mean that we're not talking about. I mean, you can't avoid every innocent
collateral
death,
damage. Yeah,
it's unfortunate, but it's true. And then conduct in war. How is a war fought is as morally significant as why it is begun. So again, did they use weaponry that would not be, I guess, considered overly cruel? Would the action be defensible before God, not merely before man? So every general and the president, everybody's going to have to answer to God for this decision, right? Given all the information they have. So let's score this. Let's score this by both Felix and myself. We're going to give scores, and you guys can weigh in on the comments too, and then we'll get back to all the comments. So first, legitimate authority. So I've split it up. I really should have put up slides.
Yeah, this gets deep.
It gets deep. So here's the traditional. So I judge under the legitimate. We're going to rate these as pass, like criterion met, partial, which means it's contested or mixed evidence, or fail, criteria not met. So we're going to go through each. So legitimate authority. So here's the argument under the traditional model that President Trump as commander-in-chief represents sovereign authority constitutionally. It's constitutionally contested, as Dr. Fieser said, because there's no congressional declaration of war. But as we said, that doesn't typically happen
anymore. It hasn't applied forever. Yeah,
it hasn't. Right. So executive power claim is consistent with modern practice. And then and if we're going to involve Israel, I mean, he was acting as the head of his state. So technically it meets the criterion at the state level, although canonical just war requires the highest lawful authority, okay, not merely executive fiat. So it would have been stronger if Congress was behind it. So my model would say, authority exists in formal terms. However, acting 2 days after peace talks collapsed without congressional declaration strains the spirit of this idea. So Aquinas meant authority is used for the common good, not unilateral executive action. Formality, it meets the bar, but it's kind of weak pass. So I give under legitimate authority partial. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say partial, leaning more towards not, but partial. There is something there. There's meat on that bone.
Okay, and so just cause. So so Iran. Now this is where we'll probably disagree. We're going to agree on some of them down here, but I can tell you right now because most of mine are fails. But I'm going to give you the one area I have a pass that I know Felix won't agree with me. So he's going to give this a fail too, I think. So traditional model under just cause, Iran was enriching uranium to near weapons grade, 408 kilograms out of May 2025, confirmed by external agency. Iran had declared that it would build new enrichment facilities, and its proxies had committed October 7, 2023 atrocities. So Iran struck a U.S. base in Qatar in June 2025, and these constitute grave injury and credible future threat. The cause is the strongest criterion in favor of the action. Oh, good night, Norm. Sorry, you're not sticking around for. So I would say again, because the nuke program, regional proxy network, the threats of these sleeper cells, past aggression, the actual strike on an allied base. So it gave us genuine just cause grounds. A nuclear armed Iran threatening us to meet the threshold of grave injury in the tradition. So I give it a pass. Now you already said you don't buy the enrichment, so you'd give that a fail.
I don't buy it. I give it a fail. I'll be a little bit more detailed. I think we're gonna find the reason being is I think we're gonna find out that all the things that you stated were baloney. That's what I think is gonna end up happening. The same thing. It's gonna be weapons of mass destruction. We're gonna find out that the attack on the base was probably even maybe they took responsibility for it. I mean, who knows? But it's just like I just wouldn't put anything past anybody at this point. Yeah, I think that it's all baloney. I think we got lulled in. We got forced into this situation probably behind the scenes. I think if we saw behind the scenes, we'd probably be more disgusted than anything.
So the rest of the criteria, basically, I have one that's partial under the traditional model, but even under my model, it fails, right? So the other intentions are the right intention, proportionality, last resort, innocent non-combatants, and basically it boils down to the campaign fails on last resort, proportionality, and right intention. Just cause is the strongest ground, and if the oppressed truly are liberated, then we can revisit some of these things. But based on the information that we have, it doesn't look like it's a strong case.
Yeah, I think what is it? Just cause. I give that a fail personally. I'd give that a fail as well. I mean, I don't maybe partial, maybe, and again, I would have to see that in retrospect. But I think it's built on a foundation of lies. So a lot of the things that we're hoping for. I mean, I don't think just because we went in there and took out everybody does not mean that these people are liberated. If anything, the real battle begins. You know what I mean? Establishing a government rather, that's not going to be a dictatorship and not going to turn around, because the minute they get into power and establish themselves, that's when they start getting feisty, which is exactly what happened when they installed the government that they had to end up having to take out now. So, I don't know if we're really solving anything. The only one thing I would say is a proportionality, but I guess we'll get to that in the list. But yeah.
Well, the thing is, we can dig back into it. We'll get to comments before we do. But just before we do, I wanted to give you an example of a war that passes the criteria.
Okay.
So the Cristeros War I mentioned in the intro there, 1926 to 29. So basically, the summary is it had legitimate authority, applying the criteria, it gets a partial pass from me. Just cause, pass. Right intention, pass. Proportionality, pass. Last resort, pass. Non-combatants, partial. And then basically it passes with moral accountability. And we can dig into it, but basically it boils down to that the Mexican Episcopate initially counseled nonviolent protest rather than arms, similar to what Leo was doing. And the Cristeros acted without formal episcopal sanction, although with implicit support of the local clergy, and had the Pope's later sympathy. So Aquinas allows that when legitimate authority has been neutralized by the oppressor, the community may act in defense. So on the Cristero, this is the most contested criterion. And there's people on both sides of this one too, right? And then just cause. Among the most unambiguous just causes in Catholic history, the state had banned the mass, outlawed religious dress, seized churches, expelled foreign priests, and was executing clergy without trial. So the fault lay with the Mexican government. And then right intention. So long live Christ the King was a battle cry and the theological statement of intent. The Cristeros fought to restore the right to worship publicly. Post-war conduct confirms this. They were not seeking political power, but just religious liberty. They didn't try to overthrow the government. Force was calibrated to the specific objective to resisting government enforcement of anti-Catholic laws. The Cristeros did not seek to overthrow the Mexican state or extend beyond the defense of Catholic life and worship. And then last resort, the bishops had already tried nonviolent protest, for quite a time. The government responded by intensifying persecution. So by the time the Cristeros rose, the nonviolent path had demonstrated it was a failure, and this criterion is met. So in terms of combatants, there's a partial pass because both sides committed atrocities. Some Cristero units executed informers and government collaborators. The tradition requires holding even a just war to account for conduct. The church's beatifications honored those who died as martyrs, not every act who committed in the war. And then so my final assessment on the Cristeros was the Cristero War is a modern case for, an example of just war theory. These were ordinary people, farmers with rifles who refused to allow the state to abolish the mass. The churches honored them, and the partial on non-combatants is a reminder that even holy causes have to be conducted with moral discipline. So just because even if you had an unambiguous case, in combat or whatever, we're required to, behave like baptized men, right? You don't kill the innocent. You don't shoot prisoners. You don't. It's right. And unfortunately, like using World War II, which is a lot of people consider the moral an easy moral war, right? The fact of the matter is atrocities were committed on both sides. There were certain allied groups. Canada was very nasty to prisoners of war, for example. France used mercenaries and attacked Italian civilians. They R-worded, they essayed the young women in Italy using mercenaries, and this stuff is swept under the rug. So even in a morally just use of violence to protect the innocent, to restore freedom, etc., war does weird things to the brain, right? People act like animals sometimes, and it's very
I'll tell you what. I got two things for you, right? So I think because before you mentioned the bomb, right? When they dropped it on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, did you know what was a specific trait about Nagasaki?
It was the most Christian of cities.
Catholic. 50,000 Catholics live there.
Yeah.
All right. So keep that in mind. I think that one. I think that bears. I have issues about the bomb too. Now I 100% understand. I was not there. I have to understand the people of the time, and in my head I can work out that there was probably a justification for it that is beyond me. I can accept that. I can only go by with what I see. But when I found that fact out, that really hurt. Now to go to a different example, which I think is your to your point, I brought this up before. Dracula, the real Dracula, Vlad Dracula, aka Vlad the Impaler.
Right.
The real story.
Sounds like the name of an industrial arts teacher, doesn't it?
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, totally. And but yeah, so his thing was, and I looked this up too. I think his main reign was over 8 years, but he was known as the Impaler because he was impaling the warring armies, the Ottomans that were coming to invade. What you don't know about the Ottomans is that they would come, and I'm not saying you, Father, I'm saying anyone in the audience. The Ottomans would go into these towns, enslave the women and children.
Right.
Vlad would go to kill the soldier, the opponent soldiers. So he brought the war to the soldiers, whereas the Ottomans were trying to bring it to the home. You understand what I'm saying? Right. Like to the village and take all of that. He did. by the way, that was kind of like he ended up dying in battle. The story of Vlad, and again, he's Orthodox, so that's a whole other thing. I'm not really getting into that, but the story of him is actually much cooler than the one we got. I'm quickly learning. But I wanted to bring those two things to the argument here, because I think that actually also falls into the category of a justified war. You're protecting your women and children.
I'm pronouncing his name probably wrong. I'm not, but John Sobolewski III, the Don Juan and the Battle of Lepanto. So there are legitimate reasons why Christians went to war.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't like to talk about it. It's not taught in the history books, but yes, part of it was what happened to the women and children if we lost, right? So if you want to go down a rabbit hole, guys, Google Baltimore, Ireland, and how a whole city got kidnapped right under the nose of the Royal Navy in the 1600s. An entire village they were English ethnicity, but they lived in Ireland, Baltimore, Ireland, and they tortured the men and enslaved them, and they put all the girls into harems and essayed them.
That's when you don't fight. Yeah. Or
Right?
That's when you, and guess what? Sometimes you can't fight and that still happens. So, I mean, like,
you got to go down to the last granny, right? Like, I mean, this is it.
Amen.
I will get a lot of flack here for what I'm about to say, but how you train a child to handle a mass event in a school is swarm, not hide under the desk.
Yeah.
And we have to train our population to stand with resolve from a young age, not to be a victim, to go down swinging. And that village probably thought, oh, well, they're just going to kidnap us for ransom. Oh, no. So they should have went down swinging. The granny with the butcher knife, the 4-year-old with a pitchfork. So, and that is something that's either in your culture or isn't. And unfortunately, this culture is very, very soft, or it's getting softer all the time. You see, the U.S. isn't so bad, but you look up at Canada, you look up in what's going on in Ireland today, and France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Germany. So I mean, Germans have so much guilt over what happened in the mid 20th century that they're now rolling over against invaders of another kind, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, no, they're turning right back into it right in front of our eyes. By the way,
their expressions of Christianity are worthless and weak. So you can quote me on that. The German church is worthless and weak.
But
and
to your point, Father, I'm going to say, like, the whole idea of swarming or like standing with resolve. Why would anyone do that if they don't believe in God or in heaven? And again,
right. Well, if you do believe, you have nothing to fear. Like, God's going to take care of you, right? But I mean, there is this thing. Like,
where are we now, though?
Caricature of Saint Francis, where everything's just all meek and well, I mean, there's a place for it, right? There's a place for it sometimes, but you know what? Where there isn't, it's morally abhorrent if you have the power to resist and you allow your children and grandchildren to be taken, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a pacifist. Well, no, you're a loser. Okay, let's just call it as it is. And you defile your own baptismal water by not standing and protecting the innocent. And that's not a popular take amongst modern Christians, but you know what? I don't care, Felix.
No, hey, look, that is a character flaw. That's something that, like, and you know what? I've had this internal, thought experiment of me absolutely chickening out in situations like this. You know what I mean? And we go back to Peter, right? And like this is one thing that I can 100%, like see eye to eye with him on or whatever, or be in the moment with him is when he denied Jesus. And I know that's so messed up, you know what I mean? But like, people, you don't understand that level of fear that, for one, this is before his resurrection, and then two, they're seeing what they're doing to the dude he loves. And that's a frightening situation to be in when there's a mob around you and you think you're going to get torn limb from limb. Yeah. And especially the prospect of crucifixion alongside him. So like, there's a lot of, it's easy to talk tough. And this is I swear, this is one of the things that we got to pray for each other for, but me especially, is, like you said, the final perseverance is that, like, you have to have that talk with yourself when the moment comes. It's like, this might happen, and you have to accept it, and you have to, make sure to try to be as right with the Lord as you can be.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, with regard to, it really is a test of how much you believe, right?
Yeah, and
I'm not saying there isn't. There is a time. Look at St. John Fisher. He didn't resist, but there was also no profit of him resisting. It was a holier thing for him to go meekly. St. Thomas More, the same way. Our Lord himself, the good thief. There's lots of examples of when to go meekly. The little nuns in the Vendée region in the French Revolution, they went meekly, and they were heroic to do so. But they weren't defending their own grandchildren or their children. See, so that's a different thing. Like, if a home invader comes in, you don't say, "Oh well, I'm a pacifist, so please, Mr. Home Invader, don't hurt me." No, you pull a J.D. Grudd on him, Grady Judd. Sorry, Grady Judd.
Yeah.
And you send a bill to the family. But anyway, it is what it is. Sorry, I'm not very politically correct here on escaping religion.
Oh, yeah, on the Bud Israel episode of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated with all of this. Like, as far like Felix, I'll tell you right now, how I say the worst enemies of Christianity are liberal Christians, or like basically apostate Christians. They're not Islam. They're not non-believers. They're not atheists. The atheists are no harm to Christians.
Not
the
really.
atheists, their arguments are so bloody stupid in most cases that is, if you have any kind of training at all, there's absolutely the worst they can do is argue to a draw. So there's no threat from atheism unless you let them at your kids through schooling, right? Like, you have to make sure they have a at least neutral to Christianity environment, which is very hard to get in this political polarized time. But I mean, there's no threat. I mean, that the threat is basically weak Christians allowing the bad guys of these other groups to gain control over us. And what I'm thinking of, I mean, I know everybody's mad at Israel and all this business, but you know what? It's the fact that our people sold out, right? I'd be more angry at the politicians that take the contributions, right? And I myself, listen, would you blame anybody from just taking advantage of what's basically given them? I don't, I mean, to me, it's when our own people are derelict. Like, I look at Huckabee and Cruz with a certain disappointment, because I used to like these guys. I used to like these guys because I didn't realize how bad they were with regards to putting another nation over their own.
Understood. Yeah.
So,
that's the
they're
lesson.
worse.
I mean,
they're worse than the anybody over in the Middle East. They're the ones that are sending American treasure and blood to be spilt over their weird theology, which, by the way, their theology is like 200 years old. They do not believe in Christianity. They use the trappings of Christianity. They do not believe in Christianity.
They don't believe it.
They don't believe in any of it.
Believe it.
So
they're politicians.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see.
There might be 4 genuine Christians in Congress, right? And the Senate. There may be 4 if we're lucky.
It does make you wonder sometimes, Felix.
Yeah. No, I personally, I'm the more I learn, the more disgusted I am. Like, especially what I'm hearing about what's going on in the Middle East. Let me tell you, if you're an opponent to Jesus, that's a problem. Okay. Yep. And if the disdain, and they did again, I know I'm going deep, so forgive me. I'm talking about the upper levels of true believers of Judaism.
Right.
I'm not talking about everyday people. And
but again, all those upper people, Felix, they would have no power if it wasn't for our own baptized falling for it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, like, I put it squarely on the blame of poorly formed Christians, and we have no, because there's no reason why we 90% of all of this mess we could have avoided if people were just faithful, right? So it's just they choose other masters other than our Lord, right? So Yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
agree
and
with you.
again, these guys, just to finish this point, they believe that our Lord's in hell. They believe he's in hell. And listen, the way I'm saying that is the rated G version of what they think is happening.
Yeah.
To
No, you
our
can
Lord.
look up your own encyclopedia, right? You
Look
can,
it up.
I have.
Yeah.
So you
And-
guys go and but then again, how many
These are the higher ups. I'm not talking about
Yeah.
the everyday.
how many of the
This is
ordinary
very
people are
specific.
into this? None, right?
No,
So
correct.
you
100%.
you hit the nail on the head. But then again, who's worse, the person that wrote that article in their encyclopedia or Cardinal Bernardine, right? Well, but that's another thing.
Right. And of course, and by the way, BB wants to be he's trying to make everything happen, so he's the Messiah, or like he ushers in the Messiah. Look this up.
Yeah, well, okay. Now, you
up.
raise an interesting point. He himself might have one of these just as bad as I just said that Iran might be into this. He might be into this weird apocalyptic. So, yeah
and we're in the middle of it.
Could be.
And they're playing
Definitely
us.
could be, man.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I think the evidence strongly
Tom Cruise
leads to
could
that.
come through that door and tell us about that Prince Zuno is right and we're all wrong, Felix. I don't know.
Oh, man. Yeah,
There's
I
a
know,
lot of
right?
different opinions.
I told you, pay
I
up.
shouldn't poke fun. I shouldn't poke fun, but I do.
Lord
Okay,
Z,
Felix,
yeah.
you said we had a lot of comments, so just skip
let's
through the
hit
ones that are no longer relevant. But let's see what you got there.
Here we go. All right. I do want to give Norm. He said a big hello to everyone. Sounds good so far. I'm 100% in agreement with you, Father Meikle. Just finished a trilogy on the history of the heroic Holy Crusades.
Yeah, I love Norm. So Norm had to go early tonight, but thank you, Norm. If you watch it in replay, thank you.
Yes, and anyone listening, definitely research the Crusades, especially if you grew up learning that these guys were worse than the German Nazis.
Just read both sides. I mean, that's all Felix and I are asking you to do. Just read both sides and make up your own mind.
Yeah, and Father Higo says he quotes Luke 22. Verses 35 and 36. But now, if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's one of those quotes that they like to delete. But absolutely, So if you don't have an AR, sell your cloak and buy one.
Yeah. And while you're at it, look up what Jesus would like to do with millstones on his spare time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for blessed millstone. But it's funny, it's how the brain. So I'm a little tired today. I mean, I know we run late on Tuesdays, but it's funny because my brain, when you put up that quote, I was saying, but now if you have a prune, take it. And I'm like, is this about digestion? No, just sorry. First,
it's that
trick of the mind. Obviously, I need more rest.
That's why I have to do my coffee. I have to do my coffee at this time, so this way now I'm yapping a mile a minute.
Yep.
Let's see. And this is a good one. Father Haygood says, by the way, hello, Father Haygood. It's always good to see you. He says Zionism was condemned by Pope St. Pius X.
Yeah.
I'm gonna refill my coffee. Take this.
The church for centuries has condemned all of this Huckabee, Cruz, Schofield interpretation of what should happen in the area of Palestine. So, I wrote, some of you follow my Substack. I wrote a 3-part article on this stuff, related to this stuff. And for the most part, well received. I get a little pushback, and I understood I should have been a little clearer. I sometimes, you think that people sort of see things the same way as you sometimes. And so, in the comments, people called me out on for clarity, and I clarified, but the criticism was good. So if you read through there and you think I wasn't clear as well, weigh in on that. But basically it boils down to that there's really no place in the Christian tradition for this Schofield interpretation, or somehow that we're going to manifest our Lord by rebuilding a building. I don't really, it's not very supported. And yet you have people screaming at you saying, well, it's clear in the scripture. Well, not from the Christian tradition. So whatever, I don't know what you call Schofield Bible.
Can you describe it a little bit? Can you summarize what that is?
Well, it's basically, from the tradition of the gospel Bible tent. It's a Protestant, I think it was Derby and then Schofield. There was a guy named
Right.
Derby or Darby. I'm trying to think. But basically, they, in the footnotes of this Bible, they put this notion that the temple would have to be rebuilt and it would have to be defiled for our Lord to return. So it's kind of like a backhanded compliment. So let's give everybody the best of intention, okay? So some of these Protestants think that if they can get the Jews to build the temple and then there's a defilement, an abomination, desolation, essentially, that what'll happen is the good Jews will all convert to Christianity, and then, basically it'll usher in the events of the book of Apocalypse. So Catholics also have this belief that many Jews will convert before the end. So that's a shared belief. But
I believe that. Yeah.
We don't hold, you see it now, actually, like across denominational or ecclesial community lines. It used to be the big difference. 30 years ago, I'd fight with Baptists, right? I'd fight over the Gospel of John and using Catholic apologetics. That's not the difference anymore. The difference is between the modernists and the traditionalists of all the groups. So, for example, an easy way to test it. So if you're a non-Catholic watching this, whether you're Catholic or non-Catholic, do the same thing. But if you read from your own tradition, old books, like something from 1920 or earlier, read old books and contrast it to what's coming out of your seminaries today. So, that's an eye opener for a Presbyterian or a Baptist as well as it is for a Catholic. So Catholics should, they can't even keep the 1990 catechism, let alone what happened before 1960. It's kind of ridiculous. There's a famous Latin saying, modus in fine velocer, things exhilarate as the time gets shorter. So that seems to be kind of what's happening, but we'll see. I just had I had a text from a priest friend of mine, and he, again, he's pretty up on a lot of stuff, and he certainly seems to think that the things are rushing towards an endpoint pretty quick. And you know what? We're warned. Christianity is in a state of apostasy and has been since about the 60s. It really does teach a new religion. So it's sort of one of my little missions or crusades is to get people to read stuff before 1960. And if I have a Protestant friend that I'm talking to, I start with their tradition. I say, read something from your tradition, 1920, theological or spiritual in scope, and you tell me what you see. And a lot of them see what we Catholics see, is that there's a lot of shenanigans. I don't know what the theological, gravity of that word is, shenanigans, but it's the best word.
But hey, it's actually a good word, and it's accurate, right?
So what else do we have there?
We got tons. Let me see. Right. Norm said a similar one. I agree 100% with the start of your talk, Father Meikle. I finished a trilogy that involves the Crusades, a time for peace, a time for war, and wisdom to know. There's
a time for peace and a time for war, and that goes for in our personal lives too, right? There's a time when, yes, we turn the other cheek and we go meek, and then there's, especially if it involves the defense of others or the defense of something that's right, you should stand.
Right? Oh, man. Yeah. And that's a tough one. I'm telling you, it's a tough one. I'm a little bit better now with that, but even
again, if the offense is only to your pride, turn the other cheek. But if the offense is to justice itself, then you should stand and
you
take
have
the cost
to.
of that.
You have right. And he says a historical trilogy are 3 books by Raymond Ibrahim on Christian warring against Islamic conquest and decimation of Christians and Western civilization.
I enjoy his YouTube, so I should read his book. Yeah, he's very good. So I'd like to read his books. So what he does different than everybody else is he sort of takes a civilizational altitude of all this stuff. So that's kind of neat. And it's really neat. Different organs in the body. All of us have different gifts and specialties, and it's there's lots of good stuff. There's bad stuff on YouTube, but there's lots of good stuff on YouTube too, and Raymond Ibrahim is one of them.
That's right. Let me see. Father,
and by the way, complete aside, Felix, or before we read Archbishop Good's comment, apparently I saw on my YouTube feed that Father Rippinger and was at Sean Ryan show, so that should be a good one.
What?
Yeah.
Wait. Explain this. I'm sorry. So what, during the Sean Ryan show, they pulled you were in
No, Father Rippinger was on the Sean Ryan show. Father Rippinger is a traditional priest that's also an exorcist.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Father Ripperger, Ray Hill, and yeah. But so yeah, he's on Sean Ryan's. When was that?
Just today, 2 hours ago.
Oh, okay. I'm
well, the
listening
clips
to it
were. I
after
don't
the
know if
show.
I don't know if the full thing's released, but yeah. So we'll
I'll check
have
them
to
out.
check that out later. Yeah.
Oh man, we'll have to check that out. Yeah, for
Absolutely.
you who don't know, Father Ripperger, first off, he has regular sermons that are outstanding, but like some of his demon stories and exorcism stories are very interesting, very compelling. But his regular just preaching is good, really good.
Yep, he's a very holy man.
But yeah, so yeah, Father Hagen says we can't even get into Iran. This is the chance to evangelize if the borders are open. The Persians were the most Western country in the Middle East until the Ayatollah and his gang took over.
Yeah. It speaks to the point of, again, my friends wanting, like, really angry at Bush for not going in there. But, it's kind of weird. Maybe had we done that, things would have went better than Iraq and Afghanistan, but it's hard to say. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20.
How Christian is Iraq right now?
Archbishop Haygood may know more than me, but I know it's a small minority. There's probably a couple 100,000.
It's not, it's not what it was, and I mean, it's not, and
No.
By the way, a big common misconception, and I'm not a Saddam guy, but he was not like some Islamist.
No, he protected secular. Christian minorities. Actually,
yes.
Again, hindsight being 20/20. He certainly it was a lot better for Christians under him than what followed. That's true.
Yeah, and guess what? Who installed Saddam? We did.
So, okay, this is total tinfoil hat. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. This is a quick rabbit hole. I should have a graphic, Felix, for when down the rabbit hole, right? Like Lee gave us that cup. I'll just chant.
I know we gotta get it
down the rabbit hole. But anyway, I used to think this stuff was all crap, but then, as they say about the joke about conspiracy theories, the difference between that and reality is like 6 months.
6 months.
Do you realize that we occupied a Babylonian archaeological site? Like there was a whole base built around it, and they sat right on top of it.
Hillary Clinton was involved. Figure that one out. Hillary Clinton was involved in that, by the way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, and speaking of which, Benny Johnson really got her on the go there the other day, didn't he? Did you know that? Did you see that?
Yeah.
Benny's like, I was just joking. You don't have to kill me.
I know,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. It's a rabbit hole. It has nothing to do with our topic. I'll never forget one day if you guys didn't know, one time. See, this is my problem. I started on a topic, and then it's free for all once we get into the conversation.
This is a feature, not a bug.
Well, God loves some audience member new to the show said, basically, hey, Father, what's this got to do with the original topic? And I was like, you know what? It has nothing to do with the original topic. So there you go.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, no, but right. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Melvin, the great Melvin, holding his Emmys? Is that what that is? Oh my God! It is unfortunate that it looks like we are doing Benjamin Netanyahu's bidding. See, look at that. However, President Trump has a very good track record of ending wars and quick in and out military operations.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know Melvin and Felix agree. I hope that's not the case. It certainly looked like the case in the attack a year ago, and this time,
same. It looks like, to your point, to your credit, Father. I think. So let me get back on here. To your credit, there was self-restraint. That as far as that, those are pass, like overwhelming pass. As far as going in, taking out just the necessary targets, very minimal collateral damage.
Well, I was against. I think I said it. I was against the attack last time. I'm actually more for it this time because my understanding is we led versus followed. Yeah. So and also the fact that the people were cheering, and so for me, my soft spot is these oppressed people. And by the way, I do sort of feel that way about Canada. I think all those poor Albertans and Saskatchewan people oppressed under the World Economic Gathering and their regime, all the censorship and the debanking without court order and all this. I do think I hope Alberta is finds its referendum and finds its liberation, but that's again a personal opinion. So, but no, but that's that again. I just think that you know, people should have the right to live in a place that, you know, they're not going to have the opposite extreme lord over them. So, and that goes for the U.S. You know, I mean, it's very hard to be a conservative in a blue state or a socialist in a red state. So, you know, we're
that's actually
much
very
more
true.
polarized world.
Very true. Very true.
World.
I'm kind of with him. This is my only contention on it. Is that the fact that, like, again, people were calling that this was going to happen, that we were going to get, you know, lulled into a war with Iran.
Yeah, but it's not. It wasn't a big stretch to figure we were going to end up tussling with them, because the thing is that when the money tap closed off,
sure,
they started rattling their sabers. You know what Trump's like. He gives you a warning, and then he smacks you in the head.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Every country has to know this. I mean, Venezuela had a chance to back out before, and then they lost. The guy was just rendered by the super sci-fi weapons. And you watch what'll happen to Cuba. Cuba's going to have.
You know what?
Cuba's going to have a choice, and if they're smart, they're just going to say, "Yes, Mr. President." And
I'm glad you brought this up.
Yep.
I'm glad you brought this up because, you know, like, I have a stake in this. You know, my parents were Cuban. I actually just visited.
Family over there, right?
Yeah, I have family over there that I talk to. I actually just visited my father in Oklahoma, who, you know, frequently visits and, you know, visits family or whatnot, and talks to them, I should say, really. But yeah, they were there without power. I'm seeing the results of, like, you know, what the U.S. is doing and how it's directly affecting the people, and it does suck. But then I'll tell you what, on the flip side, I then hear, like, Trump said something. He was like, maybe we'll have a clean takeover of Cuba or something like that. Maybe we'll make them. And immediately I'm like, please, that would be the best. Let me tell you something. That would be the best thing to happen to Cuba.
Cuba, Venezuela, and Western Canada. There you go. And Greenland. Everything peaceful.
Yeah. If we were going to Iran, let me tell you something. If we were going to Iran and we were turning Iran into, like, the U.S., and this would have went the same thing with Iraq. If it was like a 52nd state, like even in name only, like not even officially, but if it had that same, like, oh, we could just fly over there, and it's like American values in that area. So, you know, you can go to church, you can go visit the sites. So, you know, if that was the case, I'd be so in.
Every time we try to impose this on a Middle Eastern culture, it fails. But that said, there is a growing group that seeks it of their own accord, and then it would work. So, like, look at the UAE. I use them as an example. So seriously, Felix, you and I could have this podcast in a hotel room in the UAE. Their police would let us do it. There wouldn't be any problem as long as you don't insult their government, essentially, which is, well, I don't even know. You might even be allowed to do it. It just would be probably unwise. But the thing is that they're very civilized to people that don't believe as they do. Now, would they be so civilized if the U.S. wasn't so powerful and a good friend of theirs? Probably not, but I don't know that. And maybe they're so they themselves warned Great Britain and France, don't let these guys settle in your lands. We got rid of them. And you took them. You know, the UAE basically said that. So, I mean, there's, you know, it's kind of like if you're a traditional Catholic, you wouldn't inflict a liberal Catholic on anybody, right? You'd be like, no, give me an atheist, please. At least I can be friends with an atheist. You know, and I there's exceptions, but they prove they prove the rule. Like, to find a person that's either a socialist or a progressive Christian that you can actually be friends with and you can just agree to disagree, it's a rare event. It happens, but it's the exception that proves the rule. Most of them are like screaming at you like Karens. It's just crazy. So,
and I'll tell you, you know what? As far as with the Muslim, there's an avenue to get to their heart, because this is the one thing I will say that doesn't get talked to about enough. Like, yeah, there is a certain reverence that Muslims have even for our Lord. They don't listen. They don't consider him the Son of God. They consider him a prophet only. Okay, so obviously there's flaw in it, but there's an avenue there where they don't hate him, they don't disrespect him, they don't You understand what I'm saying? Like they like. Well, I guess
Yeah.
they are disrespecting him by not
Well, again,
acknowledging
it's
his.
a can
But
of
you understand what I'm saying? Like
it,
they don't think he's
it's a
burning in
can of
hell. Let
whoop,
me put it that way.
and I've addressed this on Twitter at length, and also got both flame and praise at the same time on Twitter at length for this. So every once in a while, I throw out the notion that that I don't believe Christianity and Islam share the same deity, and
I'm with
I
you. I
know all the
agree.
arguments against, and no, but I'm just saying there's actually arguments for it, right? So the Pius X Catechism and Pius X himself, it indicates basically it's a Christian heresy, right? And basically
Okay.
argues similar to what you do, is that it's not a complete rejection. They just view him as a prophet, sort of like the Arian heresy. But where I come from a different angle at it. I say, well, okay, but is the Trinity just an accident? Like if I hold up my pint of beer, which unfortunately is gone, but the color, if I'm drinking Guinness and it's dark, and then, or if I'm drinking Samuel Adams and it's and no, I'm not sponsor of either one or sponsored by either one.
Not yet.
But if I not yet, that's right. But it's still beer, right? You
Sure.
can still identify it as beer regardless of the color. Yeah. And so part of the argument is, okay, well, is the divinity of Christ and the notion of the Trinity an argument like it's a different color, or is it that if I put pond water in this, well, then it's not beer, is it?
It's not beer anymore.
So the thing is, the one thing, okay, so where Islam shares that Judaism and Christianity doesn't, so what Islam shares with Christianity is a acknowledgement of the holiness of Christ and his mother.
Yes.
And that's part of the argument why it's a Christian heresy, because when you look at the scholars and secular anthropologists who study Islam, they'll say, well, they picked different religious material from a whole bunch of different traditions, including Catholic, including Judaism, including the native religion of the Persians, and then they got sort of this combination of this Unitarian God, right?
Yeah,
that's deistic. So the thing is that an issue of the color of the beer, or is it an issue of nature? And so I say that because Islam shares that respect for Jesus and his mother as an human esteem, but Judaism shares with Christianity the notion that God is revealed as Father. And that is something that no Muslim can say, because that would be blasphemy to them. So if the revelation of God as Father is rejected, to me, then it's a different deity. But there is an argument against, and I just love stirring the pot, guys. Like, I mean, the fact of the matter is, the fact of the matter is, there are two very good. So who's that famous apologist, Felix? His name is like Sam Aboud or something like that. He's a ex-Muslim, and he does.
I love him. He's great.
So he agrees with me. He says, no, it's different gods. Okay.
Different gods.
But you get on Twitter, I had a whole bunch of people. See, part of the reason why I like to, like, you guys know that there's a prophecy, like evangelicals share this with traditional Catholics. Okay. So this is an example where traditional Catholics and evangelicals agree, is that there is going to likely be this new world organization with one world religion. Right. And a lot of people think Rome will have to be involved. Right. And it used to be that the evangelicals would accuse faithful people like you and me as being part of that Borg. But it's become apparent, a la Fulton Sheen of the 1946 prophecy, I guess you'd call it, or foresight, that there's good and bad Catholics subsist in the institution. So the trick to understand all of this, so if a evangelical's going on about, Rome's, the Pope's the Antichrist, all this. Well, first of all, if a future person that pretends to be the Pope is he wouldn't be the Antichrist, he'd be the false prophet figure. That the Antichrist is a political figure. So that's point one. The second point is that if you want a Catholic spin on this, and if you're an evangelical watching this is what, whether you're evangelical or Catholic, you'll love this book. It's 99 cents on Kindle. I don't get a cut. It's 99 cents on Kindle. It's called Lord of the World by Benson, 1907. And you read it, and you tell me, and then you'll see why we're on the side of some evangelicals too, right? Traditional Catholics and evangelicals, we both think this idea of like Abrahamic family house and Pachamama and all this weird stuff going on in the Vatican with Muslim prayer rooms in the Vatican. It's like, nope, sorry, we're Christian, we're baptized. John chapter 1 tells you who and who is not a daughter and son of God. So read John chapter 1 and it's problem solved, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So
Melvin keeps going. He said, President Trump, regardless of us looking bad, as if we are doing Netanyahu's bidding, Trump may have just taken advantage of using Israel's military to minimize U.S. casualties. I disagree with that, because my argument is we didn't have to go in there. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it escalated to the point where, because I guess they were shooting protesters, and even that, I guarantee, is a narrative.
I could be totally wrong here. I think all it takes is for Trump to be disrespected in those talks. That's all it took.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd be just like smack, right? I mean, it could be something as stupid as that. Like, we're dealing with human people here.
Yeah.
And you do not mess with Trump. I've watched, like, if you're going to, he respects a certain strength. If you're going to stand up to him, you stand up to him. You're respectful, but you're assertive, and you say, "This is my bottom line." He says his bottom line, and he respects that, and he'll deal with you fairly. But this is how the world has been working, especially Europeans and Canadians. They kiss his butt. They stand up and applaud for him. And then the minute he gets on Air Force One, they're on the air crapping all over him. You don't think that he doesn't see that duplicity? And so this is what I think. If I was in his place, I'd be like, I'm not putting up with this, man. And I think that's kind of what's happening with here, is that he gave them a deal, or whatever happened in closed doors. He gave them a lay down the law, and I bet you they disrespected him. And he's just sort of saying, "Oh yeah, we'll see how that works for you.
Okay,
Look how it works, right?" And now Cuba's going to be looking. Canada's going to be looking. Greenland's going. It's like, no, you know what? You can do it the easy way. You can do it the hard way. You can be assertive but respectful and get a good deal, or you can act like a weasel and end up with laser guided munitions coming through your windshield at breakfast time.
That's right. Again, that's super impressive. Like that. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Let me see. Good to see. Oh, good to see you too, Norm. I'm sorry. Good night. Father Hagen says, let us remember that we waited 20 years before we took Netanyahu seriously. It's not like we followed suit immediately. Hey, yeah, it took 20 years. But yeah, now the thing
again,
is,
I'm more concerned with the Congress. I'm more concerned with the congressman getting bought than anything this guy does. For me,
yeah,
right. But anyway, I don't even know what I don't know. Like, we don't have all the information. I can share with you my suspicions. I'll tell you where I used to like Dennis Prager. I used to like Ben Shapiro. I don't like either of them anymore.
I don't like them anymore.
No.
Yeah.
But I used to be. See, like I say, the way they handled and disrespected Christians has caused me to change my opinions on a lot of things. They changed me from being generally favorable to now quite neutral. Like, I really don't care what happens over there. When someone says, well, how would you fix Israel? I'll tell you how I'll fix them. You install a Christian king who gives them access to all the other religions, to the holy sites. So that's a very unpopular opinion.
That's right.
But
but it's the right. It's the right option.
No, I don't know if it's right.
Fearing Christian king.
I'm a pot stirrer, Felix. Right. So I mean, I'm just saying that I don't have a horse in the race.
I want that here. I want that
I
here.
want good people,
a Christian king.
I want good people to flourish. I want them to have the freedom to love God. I don't want any our faith ever coerced on anybody. Just want them to have the freedom to know, love, and find God, and also us to be left alone to worship Him as we were taught. And if that happens, I'm happy to coexist. Now, I'm not going to shut up. We have a duty to evangelize. But by the same token, the duty to evangelize is not the duty to coerce. And you don't want simulated conversions to Christianity anyway. Then you end up with more Judases. So we make our case.
Wow,
right?
That's such a good point. Yeah. So are you telling me, Father?
What's that, sorry?
Go on. I was going to say, are you telling me that you don't want to call to prayer 5 times a day going over the loudspeakers of our town?
There should be 3 calls. Every city and town ideally has 3 calls to prayer. It's called the Angelus. It's rung at 6, 12, and 6.
There we go. There we go. Yep. And then pray the rosary at school. I remember even doing that,
Yep.
doing a Hail Mary, doing like 3 Hail Marys before starting class. You get back
It's
to that.
nice. Yeah, no, I mean, the thing is that'll only happen when the baptized turn once again to our Lord. Like Jonah's at the door, guys. All of this stuff that's happening in history, this is like Jonah knocking on the gates of Nineveh. We can choose either to serve our Lord Jesus, or we can fall for all this crap. So there's no point. Like, we can have allies that are seculars, that have their own schemes and whatever. Maybe we have some overlapping interests, but at the end of the day, I think we should just, be honest. We intend to restore a Christian social order, but not through coercion, through argument and through demonstration that we offer a better path. And we want sincere conversions, we don't want fake conversions. Like, imagine if you lived in a country that every Christian was rich and every non-Christian was poor. Well, all these people would become Christians, but they'd be fake Christians. So you don't want that. You want a free society where people can seek God uncoerced.
But also, what we have now.
Kind of, except the left censors Christian messages.
That's right. So, that's right.
Listen, I'll go against any leftist or atheist on a fair playing ground. That's fine. Like I say, the best they can do is argue me to a draw. But the thing is that when you start messing around with kids' heads, and that again, that's another 6 shows, isn't it?
Yeah, we're talking about. Hey, I think I've had this. Like, I one of the biggest wastes of my time was my school career. All right, I think I could have gotten 3 years of public education, and even that would have been pushing it. But
to get my basic writing.
Basic literacy and
basic
math.
Literacy and basic math, basic numeracy.
Yeah. I don't even want them teaching me history.
and then just let loose in a library that's properly stocked. A lot of, some people need more structure than others, but my goodness,
tutor,
for me, almost all my learning came from, I have nearly 10 years of formal full-time equivalent university, right through all the way, bachelor's through doctoral courses to the whole 9 yards. And I don't say that to boast. I say this to tell you that most of it was kind of silly. Like, it's a hoop to go through, but when I look back at where my real learning came from, it was through reading on my own, and then going to the professor and being friends with the professor and then fighting with them, right? Like, so you'd get pushback on some of your stuff, and then they'd tell you, oh, well, you should read so-and-so, and then you go read so-and-so, and that's the fun part of university, if you're lucky to have that kind of relationship. But my understanding is professors aren't like that anymore. I remember I got an A from a leftist, but I made my case, and he and I were friends. We'd have coffee together, and we'd loved hanging out with each other, and we disagreed on everything. But that wasn't the point. The point was we were still seeking what was true. We just disagreed on what that truth was. So,
as his professor, I'm offended.
What did you do, Felix?
Yeah,
how dare you?
No. But you know what I'm talking about, Father. Now listen, from Father Haygood, yes, please. I would gladly sign up for History 101 taught by Father Haygood. Yeah, no,
he might have a course for you. There you go.
Yeah, no, that I'm down for. But yeah, I'm gonna get it from like purple-haired Karen, which or something like that. Is secularized single mother. To tell me about world history and why we're horrible people and slavery. I don't need that anymore. I just need don't need that in my life. Let me go back. Where are we at here? Norm says, in my view, I am more optimistic about the timing, the responsible nature of the present U.S. administration, and their ability to see this action rightly through. We'll see. We're still too early. All right, let's not put up the mission accomplished.
I'm kind of in Norm's camp. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm
cautiously optimistic to some degree.
We'll see. As far, what? I hate to be so cynical, but part of me wonders, like, are they just trying to get rid of all the aging weaponry? It's time to get rid of it.
Yeah. I don't even think half that stuff works anymore. Like I'm going to go real extreme, where it was like when I think a lot of their threats about nuclear, like they love to threaten us with nuclear stuff. And I guarantee, I almost feel like all that stuff's got so much dust on it, like just sitting there waiting to get launched. It probably doesn't work.
Sometimes I wonder. So Felix and I, as we get a little more professional, and unfortunately, it's going at a snail's pace. But I would love to have like a pre-show meeting, and then we can work on like like visuals and stuff. But one day, we're both busy right now, but it's coming. But you know what? You were saying this, and I got to give a point to your credit that you're going to love this story. So the Iranians are famous for faking stuff, right? Like, so they had when the Americans had they called it like an F-17. It wasn't. It was like, or F-117. It was the original stealth fighter, and it just carried like one bomb, but it was like radar invisible, and it was used in Gulf War I. And I don't think I've never seen one in real life. I've seen them on TV, but the thing is, it didn't last long because it didn't have a big payload, and it was replaced by the B-2 and other more effective, now the F-35. But anyway, when it first came out, the Iranians basically took an old plane and they put a bunch of prop stuff on it with plywood and stuff like this, and they made a mock-up, and they said, "This is our stealth fighter." And it was like, people were like making fun of them because they were like, isn't that tinfoil hanging from a piece of plywood and stuff like that, right? So the actual aviation experts are just making fun of them, but they like to do stuff like that, right? Like they were saying they were launching rockets it wasn't to the moon, but it was some weird, and people are like, the Iranians are not launching rockets to wherever they say they are. And it is, so there was a bit of theater. And so to your point, Felix, yeah, they might have had some radioactive material, but I mean, now the atomic energy, I mean, I would say they don't want war. So I think they would be, if anything, biased on downplaying what they had. And they said that they had some serious stuff. So, I mean, so that's fine, whatever. But to your point, they like to threaten with stuff they don't actually have.
Yeah,
like they were going on about the Navy. Like they had an aircraft carrier. I saw the clip, and this would have been a good thing to show you guys as B-roll. They had like a jump jet carrier that looks like a Tarawa class, but with a ski jump, and or one of those early British Hermes class carriers. And I don't know how the Navy sunk it, whether it was torpedo or missile, because I didn't see the weapon strike, but I saw they sunk it. They sunk the carrier. Yeah. So I mean, basically anything other Navy's gone, and it didn't. It went with a whimper.
Like they don't have ICBMs. Like there's like, you know what I mean. Even if they had nuclear weapons, they don't have ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Those are missiles capable of flying over the.
Well, all they have to do is open a daycare in Minnesota with a
good Leering center. Yeah, we just need a Leering center that where kids.
All it takes is the Leering center.
Yeah, they can lear how to. Mix
I'm sorry, that wasn't very nice, folks. I'm sorry. It's a story of empathy, not a story of remorse, Felix.
Yeah, right. That's a fact. I'll tell you what.
Yeah,
this was Norm saying. This was Norm saying good night. Our Father Higgins says there had been Christian communities in Iran since the 1st century, and many of them were displaced in 1979 during the Ayatollah's takeover.
Yep. There you go.
Again, a problem we created. Like specifically, if you look into history books, you can connect the dots that we created, and like to have the stones, the cheek, you know how the British like to say, to have the cheek to bail them out of this problem that we probably made it worse for them.
I hate to say it again, not to get the tinfoil hat out, but I really do wonder if sometimes various agencies of the government are actually working against each other, and they create these messes, and then we have to deal with the mess, and to save face, we have to pretend that. Because all it takes, when you think about it, all it takes is for one guy to do something idiotic. Like let's say you had a really evil fighter pilot, okay? And this guy's he just hates the world, and he hates himself, and he hates everything, and he's up there, and he does an interception on a Russian bomber over Alaska, and they do this all the time. The Americans go over them, and they come over us, and it's a game. And it used to be when before they went into Ukraine, it was, and after the Cold War fell, it was like a game. You go up there, the pilots would wave at each other, and they would be. It was like it's just very, was what they did, right?
Yeah.
Friendly, very friendly. And then, unlike the Chinese, which will like come right at you like a game of chicken with a car, they've collided with U.S. aircraft before. So, and they do this with ships too. So, whatever, it's kind of crazy. But anyway, the Russians and the U.S. had this, and the Russians did it with Canadians too. And it's just it's basically a friendly game of cat and mouse, and they test each other's responses. And so, But can you imagine if you had an evil guy on our side who just armed the missile and fired it off and blew up a Russian plane when the guys were expecting to toast one another and give each other a thumbs up, and this time it just blew it out of the sky, and this guy had no authorization to do it? Well, try telling the Kremlin that, right? Like, I mean, you could set off World War III with one bad guy, right? So look at Archduke Ferdinand.
World War I.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Right
Yeah,
there.
Exactly. So I mean, you think about it, it's kind of weird. So hey, Felix, were you surprised that China decided just to sit this one out completely? You weren't
It's
surprised?
the move. Yeah, when your enemies are destroying themselves, you stay out the way, right? As the great Sun Tzu said, like, we're literally expending resources.
There was concern there was going to be escalation, or there'd be a play with Taiwan or all this kind of stuff. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. So I mean, part of the reason why this didn't spiral into a World War III, well, at least it hasn't as of airing time with us, is the other world powers just, they decided not to say anything.
That's true. Let's see. So Father Haygood says, here's what I asked myself about it. At what point is it morally abhorrent to stand by and let the Islamic Republic slaughter its own people for trying to peacefully protest? Yeah,
it's a hard question.
I'm going to push back on it. Let's go back to the Iraq War again, when you had that little girl at the UN, I think it was, saying that they were that Iraqi soldiers were going into Kuwaiti hospitals or whatnot and destroying incubation tanks. So you remember the story? And it turned out to be, like that was a speech that kind of riled up the Congress and riled up the American people to say, okay, let's do this, right? That turned out to be a completely false narrative. That lady, that girl, was the daughter of a Kuwaiti or Iraqi diplomat or whatever. Like, all of this was set in stone to play us. So my only pushback on it is that I think down the line we're going to find out that everything that we've been told is a lie. Because that is the constant thing. We can't keep falling into the same
again,
trap.
Phil, I'll push back on you with this, in the sense that I bet you up to 30% really wants to be liberated. And certainly there's a big expat community in North America that are Persian. They identify themselves as Persians. They don't like being called Iranian. They identify themselves as Persians. They want their country back. Right. So
I think that's true. I think that's 100% correct.
I think what we don't know is what percent. Right. Like, I mean, and even then, like, how do you sort it out? I mean, look, we could go down on a lot of rabbit holes on that. Like Ukraine, you could argue, well, yeah, but Putin just wants the ethnically Russian parts, right? Like, I mean, like, and then it's a big rabbit hole and fights on both sides. And it's just like, but it's just that it's complicated. Like, at what point, how granular, when we say we're for democracy, how granular is it? Like, if Florida was the only state in the union that would allow people to refuse the jab, is it right for that state to say, we're not letting federal, you know what I mean? There's a debate on both sides. It gets kind of wild.
Right. Do they have, if they say no, and there's a certain point, it's just, we've been lied to so much about this situation, and again, it's like,
it's hard to trust anything anymore.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, listen, I'm willing to let this play out, and obviously, if something is if I'm wrong, thank God.
Yep,
thank God. But again, it's just that if we go by the same pattern, if we look at history, we're seeing a pattern here, and we're falling right into the same trap. Vietnam, Gulf of Tonkin, Iraq, the Kuwaiti situation that we just talked about. Afghanistan, 9/11, which that turned out to be bunk. For the most part.
Some would say it's like World War II. Krupp, the arms manufacturer, it made money on both sides. The Argentinian conflict in the 1980s, France made money on both sides of that war. I mean, so some would just say,
Rothschilds.
Well, it's just business. It just, I mean, so it could be.
Yeah,
I hope not, but it could be.
We're talking about Iran. You know who we should be talking about, really, is Saudi Arabia. We should really be talking about Saudi
They're,
Arabia.
they're a funny bunch. I mean, in a sense that, again, very tolerant and respectful in some dimensions and very scary in others. It's kind of interesting.
I would say scarier than Iran. And in fact, we had proof that they were directly involved, or at least people in Saudi Arabia were directly involved with 9/11, and we have done nothing there.
Well, but here's the problem. The problem is, it's like, okay, so if you had a rogue, we're just talking movie stuff right now, right?
Of course, yeah.
Let's say you had a rogue CIA agent that did a whole bunch of crazy stuff, and people are all Americans to blame for that one rogue guy?
No.
See, that's what I mean. There is, you do sort of wonder, like, what kind of levels are, like, a lot of people are saying, like, this whole UAP, UFO crap, that there are, some presidents were read in, some weren't. Well, who decided that? What authority? There's no constitutional authority for them to do it. So it is kind of interesting, because I think what would be fair to say, and I think most of our viewers would agree, the simple way of understanding democracy and the way the world works that we were taught as kids, whatever it is, it isn't. The reality isn't that.
Yeah, that's not what this is. Right. Let me and yeah, if that's the case, if they're really killing protesters or whatever, sure. But can we remember our protests when we had people like peaceful protests, people peacefully protesting as they were literally burning buildings down, whatever? I don't know the story. I do not. Okay. Right. It is 100% possible that they just had some signs saying liberate us, and then people just came out, just came and fired them. However, I don't know the whole story.
The clip I saw, which I don't think was doctored because it sort of rings true, it's just basically sort of like what you see in England, or you see in Minnesota or Portland. You got a gang that's pro one side, a gang that's pro the other. They mess it up a little bit. I didn't see anybody getting, other than the roughness that would come from that. And then these people are pretty, angry. So I'm sure that there was some injuries, but no, I think right now it's everybody's kind of trying to pick a side. And
yeah. And
I don't know if there's too many.
I don't have a horse in this race. Say that again.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's many fence sitters. I think almost everybody over there either likes the current regime or they don't.
And let me tell you, like what happened in Minnesota in the summer of love or whatever, the same thing happened there is happening there. 90 times out of 100, when there is, like, you have your opposition and then you have a smaller cell of that opposition that's radical, usually that is the opposition. This is like a popular tactic. And in fact, if you look up American COINTELPRO, when Martin Luther King Jr., especially, this was a big deal during Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, when they were doing their protests, their marches, whatever, the American government would put these plants into these protests to stir up riots, start trouble, to justify police action on the rest of the protest.
Right.
And you can 100% look that up, and again, so I need more information, and I need to do more research. That's on me. You know what I mean? But I'm kind of going just by patterns of history.
I'm at the point where I know that both sides lie to us as far as information. So I take it all with a grain of salt. I like to stir the pot, and I have my guesses, but I don't trust much what's what we get on our news.
Father Hagen says it's growing in Iraq. I think he means Christianity. I hope so. That'd be great.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. You do plant a seed, and I'm telling you, when people see the difference, I mean, this is going to be maybe rough to say. There's an objective difference in a Christian society and Islamic society.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
One is objectively better.
There's a YouTube channel called Apologetic Roadshow, and that fellow, he often does something. He seems to think they're all going to convert. So, I mean, that's great. I hope he's right. Right? He's got some wild videos. If you guys want to really dive deep into the mysteries of Islam, that's from a Christian perspective, go visit Apologetics Roadshow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me see. Father Hagen, hey, my great grandmothers half Cuban, half Spanish via Española. We still have family in Cuba. I too have a vested interest. Yeah, listen, I'm like, I just hope. I have a family member who's like real commie. I love him to death. But I mean, super, America's a reason Cuba's messed up and this, that, or the other. And I debated him, especially when I went to go visit family in Oklahoma. And I'm like, no, and I'm like, how are you saying this when you live in this country and you go over there and bring them food?
Right. Thank you. Exactly. That's why I get a kick out of these people protesting certain, migration policies, flying the flag of their origin. It's like, are you nuts? You're just basically
crazy.
You're just basically telling everybody that you don't want to be here.
You don't want to really be here. Yeah. You want to bring their over here. You know what I mean? And
like, and it's like people in Florida are scared of people coming from blue states because they're scared they're going to start voting blue down here.
Yeah, we don't want that commie stuff. And again, Cuba, listen, my grandparents, may they rest in peace, very anti-com. They came here and they love this country. My father was my grandfather rather was a postman for like 20, 30 years, like some super long time.
Right.
And absolutely loved, capital L, loved this country, and did not want that coming over here. What they got in Cuba coming over here, and I knew, and many of my family is the same, but there's a couple that are kind of leaning left. I'm like, no, how are you doing?
We have a trap door installed near the doorbell, and when they press the button, they're asked if they like Franco or not, and if the answer's wrong, the door opens. No, just joking.
That's right.
How I'm joking is you can't build basements or trapdoors in Florida. We're too close to sea level.
Yeah, that's right. We'll sink into the sand. All right, let me see.
I'm joking. I'm going to get flamed for that last comment.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that's right. I put that earlier. When you have pictures of hundreds of dead bodies, how much more proof do you need? As not enough for me. And Father Haygood, I say I respectfully, but only because I just don't know what's real anymore, especially with AI images.
Yeah. I'll agree with Felix on that. We don't know what anything is real anymore. Yeah. For all you guys know, Felix and I are just like, we did this show like 2 weeks ago and we just programmed the AI with our voices.
It's wag the dog.
Pretty close.
Yeah. That's right. And it's just like I've seen too many instances where they're like, look at this footage of this house being bombed by the American. And it turned out it's like from 1980 something, and it's some Polish you know what I mean? It's something that has nothing to do with the US. So again, it's like I just don't trust what's being fed to me. I don't trust it.
But in the meantime, just paint your roof blue.
Yeah, let's paint your roof blue. That's 100% true. And just again, listen, 5 years from now, we're gonna be having this conversation again. We're gonna find out how much of this was all lies.
That's true.
That's my prediction.
Yeah. Well, we hope it's kind of scary. Like you know what? Love or hate President Trump.
Yeah,
I don't think most people have realized how close we were to losing any kind of information flow if that Ministry of Truth got set up. And if you want a canary in the coal mine example, you check out what Canada has. It hasn't passed yet, but these pending laws for censorship, and that basically the government can decide what's true and what isn't on their own authority, and it means everything's going to be hidden, right? So we came close to that with that Ministry of Truth, and God love the good Americans, and including some that probably vote Democrat, said we don't need a Ministry of Truth.
No, we don't need this.
One thing, the news would be very boring. I mean, at least now it's kind of like WWF wrestling. It's kind of fun, right?
Yeah. But the whole thing is make believe, right?
Right.
But at least we have two warring sides here to get some sort of
And while we're all distracted, then the real stuff goes on, and we're not paying attention, right?
Yeah. The islands are getting filled up, and with all that stuff. So, you know what? By the way, that's a whole other rabbit hole. I'm surprised we didn't even touch on that. This whole thing is one big giant distraction away from the Epstein stuff.
Big psyop.
But
yeah, could be anything. Could be anything.
Yeah, because there was another big story too, that it was just like stop. Oh, the UFO. They were trying to do another big UFO dump. And this was literally like 2 days after, or like the day that Hillary Clinton was testifying. There was like some aliens. Come on, guys. Just stop.
No, I know.
Stop. Like no one cares anymore. Like
they can't help themselves. They cannot help themselves.
Yeah, I think they tried to. They put, again, this you can look into. That the government is very firmly involved in the movie making business for most of our lives, And they 100% did plant this alien stuff in movies for us to want aliens to be real. I mean, you can go back to you go from the pulp stuff, you see the shift from Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. All of a sudden, it was from silly Bride of the, and I just watched Ed Wood today, by the way, which he was like the king of that pulp stuff. But when we started getting into that shift, E.T. and all that stuff, there was like a different energy behind the alien thing. They want us to believe that stuff, but I think they actually got us bored of aliens. Again, that's why you see the meme. It's like, hey, aliens are real, and the guy's like all look like me. He's like, bro, I got a lot going on right now.
For fun, I'm just going to ask if anybody who's watching was into 1950s science fiction like I was, because the science fiction back then, there was some alien stuff, but a lot of it was just about humanity exploring space and the solar system and stuff, and its first sort of pioneer adventures, and that's kind of what I grew up with. That and Star Trek from the 60s.
Star Trek. Actually, that was another one that was kind of
Space 1999. Did you ever see that, Felix?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, you gotta check that on YouTube.
Like that. I got
Space. You just watch one. Yeah, just watch one. It's so.
I will. I'll do it.
I use the French word for cheese, fromage. It's so fromage, but it's fun. Like it's just you gotta have the right attitude. Like if you're as long as you have the right attitude, it is hilarious. It's kind of like Monty Python. Like if you don't watch Monty Python with the right attitude, it's not funny. It's stupid. Well, it's the same way. But the Space 1999, they had the Eagle, the spaceship, the Eagle. Very well done. It looked like something you could imagine extrapolating from the moon project, what a spaceship would look like and stuff. They did such a really good job. And so it's fun, and it's a stupid premise. The moon loses its orbit and it goes visits planets and stuff. That's kind of stupid, but the set, the spaceships, it's worth seeing as a piece of history.
That's right. Father Hagen says here's the thing, they're all chanting "Long live the King, not death to America."
Well, as long as we can get them to sing "Long Live the King Jesus," right? But Archbishop Meikle is right. They want the crown prince still lives, right? The heir to the throne still lives, so he might get reinstalled. Right. You never know.
But no, they're looking at the vice president. They're talking. He's already doing the circuits and the news, and he's like, "Oh, we already have backing." And I'm like, "Okay, they're installing the next guy." Guys, this isn't. Father Haga says that they would prefer the Shah to the Ayatollah 100%. And from what I understand, wasn't the old Shah like a lot more? Was it the Shah more, or do I have it backwards?
If you see pictures,
liberal, or
if you see pictures of the 70s, like Iran in the 70s, it looked like a U.S. city with slightly different clothing. But even then,
that's weird. I was looking this up. I was actually looking it up. I'll pull some of these images.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, pictures of Iran in the 70s. People don't realize this. Let me share this. Sorry about that, Father. I should have been a little faster here on the jump. Okay, so here we go. These are the women in Iran, 1970s. You even have a short skirt above knee length. We won't stare too long at that.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't think that's a current image. Yeah. 1970s, King Mohammed Reza, Iran. Having a smoke. So again, there's no Iranian women in the mid 70s, and this isn't for lustful purposes. It's just to show that this wasn't the enslavement, Islamic enslavement that people were trying to sell us. So it was like a terrorist home base. No, that's not what it was. That's all. But I was looking at that too.
But it is kind of scary how quick a country can turn, right?
Yeah, so, that's right. And
good night, Archbishop. Have a good one.
And God bless you. Now we're at the 2-hour mark. I can talk about this for another hour.
Well, let's just whip through our comments and then we'll sign off, Felix. I'm falling asleep on you too. Are we done?
We're done.
Well, it's
We can totally
perfect
wrap up.
timing. Well, in that case, we'll finish with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. God, our Father, creator of all things, we praise and thank you for your gifts. We ask you to bless and protect the innocents of Iran and keep our servicemen safe who might be in harm's way. Always incline our hearts to your divine and holy will. And may Almighty God bless us, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, amen. God bless and protect each of you. Bear his light to a world that no longer believes. And we'll see you next week.
God bless everyone. Good night.
It's a